it got to a point where I wasn't going to accept conditional love anymore because no matter how you think about it, it is a form of a conditional love. It's like saying, "Hey, we love you, but you have to change." Like if that's the kind of thing that you get from people in your life, I don't think that's right. And so for me, I first started with just fully accepting myself and being comfortable with who I am. And so a lot of people find their chosen families, that, people that can give you the support system that you need. And, I was open to that. I think that was the turning point when they started really accepting.
Hi everyone, my name is Stephen Wakabayashi, and you're listening to Yellow Glitter, perspectives from queer Asian creatives, entrepreneurs, and changemakers making an impact. This episode, we're joined by an extra special guest, Mike Talplacido. He is a queer Filipino-American artist based in North Carolina. Born in the Philippines, Mike is the author of Kiss My Mike, a memoir chronicling his life as a gay Filipino immigrant in America. The book follows his journey from a pop culture obsessed boy in the Philippines to an adult navigating self-discovery, rejection, and acceptance in the US. In addition to being a published author, Mike is an aspiring screenwriter and filmmaker. His work spans various TV and film projects where he has taken on roles as a writer, producer, and director. Some of his past and upcoming projects include To Ken with Love, The Perfect Couple short film, The Manalos, and #Don't. Welcome to the podcast.
Thanks, Steven. Yeah. Can you hear me okay, by the way?
I can.
Yeah. Thanks for that intro. And, it's an honor to be here on your podcast, Yellow Glitter. I'm so excited. And I just want to say thanks for creating this platform. The work that you and your team do is incredibly important, raising awareness and creating meaningful conversations around and about our queer identity. So kudos to you and the team, and more power to you, and thank you. I'm excited for our chat today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So kind. And I actually was doing some research, and for some reason I was just searching queer Asian entrepreneurship, queer Asian representation in some sphere or some bubble. And just recently your name popped up, and I went onto your social, took a look at your work, and I was like, oh, wow, I really love the representation, the queer Filipino representation. But beyond that, also, when we started chatting earlier on before this episode, you have such a kind, collected, just this meditative demeanor. And I'm just curious. Have people always mentioned this about you? I just feel so like everything's gonna be okay.
Oh my gosh, it's so funny you say that because I heard some people say that to me, and sometimes I have a trouble actually believing it because I always think sometimes that things are stressful and like, I guess, internally, sometimes how I process things, there's always a lot sometimes like in my head,
Mhm.
but maybe so, if that's the case, I'll take it. And hopefully, in the future, I can also believe it even more and embrace it even more and keep it up. Maybe, maybe that can inspire others to
Yeah.
be the same way. But thank you for saying that. And by the way, shout out to, I'm so glad that you reached out to me and that we made a connection. We've connected. So I'm just trying to figure out like maybe somewhere down the line, like the Google algorithm works, right? Like I can't figure out what,
Somewhere, somehow.
right? Like I wish I can find out what exactly,
Mhm.
did I do or something that, allowed my content to be visible to you. But, I'm glad that we did. So thank you.
Yeah. And I think you have such a big history spanning your work. And I want to first touch a little bit about the work that you're doing, specifically on this book that you had talked about, this pop culture obsessed background, and this boy grew up in the Philippines. Tell me a little bit more about this project and this book.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's actually called Kiss My Mic,
Mhm.
which I'm going to show you a little picture. So it's this one. So Kiss
Yeah.
My Mic. So it's my name. So a little history. I started writing this book in 2018. That was the time when my mom passed away. So just a little history or a background about me. I'm a queer Filipino immigrant.
Mhm.
I moved to the US in 2003. So that was over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I was in my 20s when I moved. In terms of the, I guess, technicalities of how I moved to the US,
Yeah.
I immigrated here through a work visa arrangement. My background is in IT or was in IT. So that was the opportunity. That was the reason how I came to the US.
Mhm.
A little bit also about my family. I'm Filipino, my parents, my sisters. When I moved here, it was just me. So everyone else, stayed behind.
Yeah.
And
Well, I want to ask like just touching on that, what inspired you? What made you go, I'm going to make this happen bravely and just be the first in my family to do it?
I think the journey to move to the US, I think, growing up in the 90s,
Mhm.
I was always interested in, there's actually two things that I was interested in as a young, Filipino boy. One was beauty pageants. Second, I was really into, like all these movies, the Hollywood movies, like TV show and movies.
Mm.
I remember growing up in the 90s, I was watching all the shows like Beverly Hills 90210, Melrose Place,
Yeah.
all the Julia Roberts movies. I think there's a little bit of a byproduct of the colonial mindset there, which, maybe I can elaborate more later.
Yeah.
But growing up, I had this, idea. Basically, I bought into this whole American dream mindset. So I think that was always, in my head. And so
Yeah.
fast forward to 2003 or early 2000, when I had the opportunity to move to the US through the corporate path, through the IT path, I went for it.
Mhm.
I took the opportunity. It was nerve wracking. It was, a combination of emotions. There's excitement, there's fear of the unknown. But I think the influence of American culture was really deep inside of me, I guess, that, made me decide to go for it eventually. So that was, I guess, to answer your question, that was sort of the beginning of my journey to America. It started really with my interest in pop culture.
Yeah.
And I think earlier you were talking about the book also,
Yeah.
right? Like how it
Mhm.
came about. I guess growing up in the Philippines, and I think it's similar to, some of my friends from, that are Asian. They also tell me that, sometimes the family, when it comes to like pursuing a creative career,
Yeah.
it's hard to get support of parents, right? Because
Especially Asian parents, doctor, lawyer, engineer.
absolutely. So that was it for me. My choices were, I was either to consider like a science or lawyer. And so, I mean, I chose business. So I graduated with a business degree. I ended up working in IT. But in the back of my mind, I've always been interested in the creative stuff.
Yeah.
Writing was one of them. Actually, when I moved to the US in 2003, so that was when I moved here, while I was working, I already started a blog. I started a blog. So the whole Kiss My Mic actually was, started out as a blog back in
Mm.
2005.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have listeners that who were active around that time, platforms like,
Mhm.
Blogspot or like Type.
Blogspot, Zanga. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I know I'm
Mhm.
revealing my age, but that's how it started. when it comes to writing, I started an anonymous blog called Kiss My Mic. It was on, I think,
Mm.
Blogspot or one of those
Yeah.
platforms. So I was just really writing about my experience as an immigrant
Why anonymous?
because I was in the closet.
Uh,
So I don't have pictures.
mhm.
So we can talk more about also the journey towards identity. I was definitely in the closet,
Yeah.
and I was living sort of a secret life.
Mhm.
My identity is not known to family members and all that.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be able to express myself, I guess. And so I do it in two ways. One, I was actively going out, meeting friends, going out on dates. I did a lot of online dates and, like all the
Mm.
websites that you can think of before.
Did you know you were gay when you had immigrated?
Yes, I knew I was gay,
Mm.
but I was in denial. I was also, obviously I was closeted, I was in the closet.
Mhm.
I think in terms of sort of my identity, when I was young, I always feel different.
Yeah.
I always thought I was different. I was already, I mean, imagine I told you I was into beauty pageants, like
I love beauty pageant.
age 10, I was 10 years old when
Yeah.
I first watched Miss Universe. I remember it so vividly. It was in 1991.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I watched the pageant. The winner of that pageant was Miss Mexico. And she
Mhm.
was wearing a red sparkly gown. Her hair was pulled up. She was so
Core
confident.
memory.
Right, exactly. She
Yeah.
was so confident. The Q&A was amazing. There was something about it that, oh my God, like I was just into it. And then every
Mm.
year it became an activity. And pageants are huge in the Philippines. That's our
Yeah.
Super Bowl, basically. And then I know that I was different because a lot of the kids were playing basketball and all these different sports. Meanwhile,
Yeah.
not only was I watching Miss Universe, I actually was have doing this Miss Universe game, which
Oh, yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
wrote about this in my book. So basically, back then, what I would do was I would have like a piece of paper like this,
Mhm.
a blank piece of paper. I will cut it in 8 different pieces, like different cutouts that's the size of like a card, like a playing card.
Yeah.
And then each piece of paper, I would draw a Miss Universe contestant.
Yeah, yeah.
And they come from different countries. There's Miss Australia, they have a sash,
Mhm.
they have different hairstyles. So, that was my activity, that was my pastime as a kid. And so I guess just to answer your question about the identity,
Yeah.
whether I knew it already, I think I knew that I was different when I was a kid. I was confused about my sexuality. I also went through a phase of being in denial because there's so much pressure being from the Philippines. We
Mm.
were my family's, they're Catholic. It's a Catholic family, and my grandma was very active in church. She was the president of Catholic Women's League in our province. My dad
Really?
was,
Yeah.
yeah. So there was a lot of that, and there was also the society's perception in the Philippines towards LGBTQ is really poor. Like
Yeah.
even now, I think it is. I think we're making some progress, but when I was growing up,
Mhm.
it wasn't really a good perception, right? And so there's a strong pressure to, I don't know, like keep up with
Be
appearance.
straight. Yeah.
Be straight, exactly. And I did that. I
Mhm.
did that when I was in high school. I sort of I was overcompensating, I guess, my identity. I
Mm.
ended up, I don't know if if you've ever done this, Steven, but I went through a phase in high school. I was into like heavy metal. I was wearing like all black and like
Yeah, yeah.
chains. But that was part of it. Well, that was part of me coping and trying to deal with everything. And then
Mhm.
slowly, I guess I got over got over that a little bit.
Yeah.
In college, it was a different pressure than in the US.
Hmm.
But even when I moved to the US, I still wasn't out to family because a lot of it, there's still the big pressure, from family.
Yeah.
I used to call my parents when I first moved here. I first moved to California first, by the way, and then New Jersey, and then now I'm in North Carolina. So it's a long story. Sorry about that, but it's a long journey for me to come out
Hmm.
because I was like a late bloomer. I didn't come out until I moved to the US. In my 20s.
Definitely.
It was really in the beginning. There's just a lot of pressure to continue and keep up with the expectations.
Mhm.
Whenever I talk to my parents, on the phone, the first question they would ask was, "Oh, do you have a girlfriend?" Like it's become
Mm.
a common thing from family members whenever I meet them.
Yeah.
It's like, when are you gonna get married? Or you have a girlfriend? And I really just got tired of hearing it. And to the point that I really started to distance myself.
Mm.
When I talk to my family, I would keep it to a bare minimum because I just,
Yeah.
can't deal with it. But then behind the scenes, my secret life, I was exploring the world. I was exploring, being gay and finally like being comfortable with my identity
Yeah.
until it got to a point where when I was ready to
Yeah.
let everyone know. It's a long answer to your question why it was anonymous, but it's because of the context
Uh,
around that time that I wasn't fully open to reveal myself.
yeah. What was that experience like when you came out to them?
Oh my gosh. The coming out process. Yeah, I think the first thing I want to say about that coming out, it's always an individual journey, right? So if there's any listener out there who's thinking of doing it, I would offer my support and say that you have to do it on your own terms.
Definitely.
Like what I said, mine is maybe a little bit late. It happened a little bit late in my life. I was in my 20s, but of course, it was tough. It was hard because,
Definitely.
like when I was explaining earlier, I wasn't able to share a part of me to my loved ones, to my family, and that was hard. It created so much, like sad feelings, and it created a distance between
Yeah.
me and them because I feel like I wasn't able to share stories about my life. So that was the first part of it. And then later on, I guess I became more comfortable because of the fact that I was enjoying my life, so to speak, my secret life. I
Definitely.
was having fun. I met a lot of friends. I ended up being in a relationship in New Jersey,
Definitely.
and I felt like that was a strong enough relationship. I had a good foundation. My friends were supportive of me. I first came out to some work friends,
Mm.
and the work friends were also Filipino. So this is my coming out journey. So I was
Mhm.
like, everybody that knew me at that point in person would already know that I'm gay.
Yeah.
So when I came out to my work friends, and some of them are Filipino, so these are people I was working with in New Jersey,
Yeah.
their response was, "Oh, we already know." So, which was
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
really for
Yeah.
me was, oh my gosh, like I was so scared to let them know,
Yeah.
but that reaction made me feel so much better about my decision to tell them. And then that gave me more courage and confidence to, the next thing was I then came out to some of my close friends. Some of them were in the Philippines. We were
Mm.
talking on, instant messenger. And,
Yeah.
one of my closest friends, once again, was very supportive. She was a little bit surprised, I guess, because she didn't think about it or whatnot.
Mhm.
But overall, it was a positive response.
Yeah.
So after that, it's time. I felt like it was time for me to come out to my family. So
Mm.
I mentioned the context of my family, like my
Yeah.
grandma, my parents,
Religious background.
the
Yeah.
religious background. So this is when I sort of experienced some of the hardest things, I think, because it wasn't an outright acceptance from my family. I have three sisters, one
Mhm.
older and two younger. So I first talked to the two younger sisters,
Yeah.
because their personality, I felt they will be more open and accepting, and they were.
Mhm.
However, they were shocked. Like one of my sisters, she was crying,
Mm.
and even though they didn't say anything, the silence also spoke volumes to me, right?
Mhm.
And so that was hurtful to me, right? Because that's not what I was expecting as a response. But I continue, I basically
Yeah.
have to deal with it right on my own. So that wasn't the worst part though.
Yeah.
When I then reach out, or when I then talked to my mom's response was, it was sort of semi acceptance, but then she said, "Oh, let's just not talk to your dad about this. Let's not tell him,
Mm.
because
How did that make you feel? Yeah.
yeah, because she thought at that time that it would be hard for him to accept."
Yeah.
And they even mentioned things like, "Oh, he's got a heart condition." And for you to hear that, that was just, oh my God,
Mm.
like, what did I do? This is just me. And I'm just being myself. And for
Yeah.
me to be responsible for whatever that could happen to him was just too much to bear.
Yeah.
So it was just so much hurt feelings that were piling one on top of each other. And then the worst part, my older sister, she was the most religious of all. She started really thinking that, this is not right. And,
Mm.
it's not what says, it's what's in the Bible. And
Yeah.
then the most hurtful thing that I heard really was, well, if you're not going to change, then forget about us. So that was like to
Wow.
me, it was the worst thing. It was
Wow.
the most hurt that I was in my life was when I heard that and I went through that.
What about your grandma?
I don't remember, and she's already gone now too, but I
Mhm.
never really had a chance to tell her, "Hey grandma, I'm gay." I think towards the end, I think she passed away 2019, so 1 year after my mom passed away.
Yeah.
At that point, it was one of those things that I didn't need to say anymore.
Mhm.
It's just evident in everything that I do,
Yeah.
that's me. That's who I am.
Did you tell your dad? Did you ever get around telling your dad?
Yeah. So here's what happened. I went through a phase of just distancing myself away
Mhm. I
from
bet.
from them, right? Because I was hurt. And it really got to a point where well, at first I was just hurt. I was just processing
Yeah.
the pain. And I think my emotion went from, I was feeling bad, I was feeling hurt. And then later on, I just started believing in myself more. And now I'm thinking about, you know what? This is me. If they're not gonna accept it, then so be it.
Definitely.
It got to a point where I wasn't gonna accept conditional love anymore, because no matter how no matter how you think about it, it is a form of a conditional love. It's like saying, "Hey, we love you, but you
Mhm.
have to change." Like,
Yeah.
if that's the kind of thing that you get from people in your life,
Yeah.
I don't think that's right. And so for me,
Yeah.
I first started with just fully accepting myself and being comfortable with who I am. And so
Mhm.
I took control, so to speak, that, this is what I have on the table, that this is me. If you're not going to accept me, then so be it. I was ready to just move on from it. And you know how a lot of people find their chosen families, that,
Yeah.
people that can give you the support system that you need. And, I was open to that. I think, I think that was the turning point, when they started really accepting.
Why do you think that is? What is there something that happened? How long ago was it until they started turning a point?
When I came out, Gosh, when was it? So with my sister, it was around 2006. I was still in New Jersey.
Yeah.
I was still in New Jersey. I moved to North Carolina in 2008. So it was around that time.
Yeah.
I think from 2008, things were already getting better because I focused more on my life.
Yeah.
That's when I decided to move to North Carolina. I moved here because I ended up going back to school. I went to graduate school.
Mhm.
So I think that helped me in a way that I had more focus on myself. So the career was my priority. And then, I was in a relationship then
Yeah.
as well, which is another story because there's drama involved. Right now I'm married, but it's not the same person I was with in New Jersey.
Always the case. Yeah.
But I think with my family, it took time. I think it
Mm.
just got to a point where I had to take control of it and say, this is me.
So were you the one that reached out or were they?
Yes and no. I think
Mhm.
for me, even though I was more emotionally distant to them, there were times that I would still call. I guess it's the Filipino guilt or the Asian guilt
Oh, yeah, yeah. Filipino and Catholic guilt.
and
Yes.
Catholic guilt.
Yes.
So here's the thing, like let's say Christmas time. I would still call. I still did the right thing, I guess,
Mm.
of calling. But even though I was feeling bad, right?
More power to you. That some people, that is hard. Yeah.
It is. It's definitely hard. But I think that the space in between helped me
Yeah.
to really create the distance and really focus on myself. But that guilt was still gonna be there. So every once in a while I would call and reach out.
Mhm.
And then later on, I think it got to a point where the conversations become more open
Mm.
and they would ask about me. And then when I moved to North Carolina, they were interested in my career. They were asking about how things are. My parents ended up visiting me in 2015.
Mhm.
And at that point, I was already seeing my now husband, and they actually met him.
Mm.
So for me, the sort of closure and acceptance I fully felt
Yeah.
when they met my now husband, Chris, because
Mm.
we're together. So different, like we all have different experience, right? I think for me, it was tough. I understand that.
Oh, where are they at with now? I mean, coming from, it seemed like they wouldn't budge on accepting. And I'm just curious. You can definitely share your partner, and I've heard stories where even with a partner, they're like, yeah, 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 you're gonna change or something like that. But where are they now? Are they excited about this facet of your identity? Are they still kind of figuring it out? Where are they?
I think I would say that I feel accepted. I mean, I can share
Really?
everything about my life
Yeah.
with them. Like I'm just trying to be sensitive because I know that it's not always a happy ending for everybody, right? That sometimes we find ourselves in not a very good place, right?
Mhm.
I think for me, maybe it's luck that it came around or something like that. And so my only wish for anyone who's going through something like this is the most important thing is really that you accept yourself, that you love yourself. And
Mm.
that was the first step for me. I just accepted who I was. And I think the fact that I was able to reconcile with my family was just an added bonus.
Mm.
Sometimes it doesn't happen. If it doesn't happen, I think it's fine as long as you feel enough, you feel good about
Yeah.
yourself and that you have people in your life that can support you, whether it's
Mm.
friends or a partner or something like that. I think that's important to really find your family.
And was there a point when you didn't accept yourself? Was that when you weren't
Oh my gosh,
out
yeah.
to yourself and you're still masking? What did that look like?
Yeah. Absolutely. It was, like the early years in the US, I was playing along with the whole notion of, oh, when are you gonna have a girlfriend?
Yeah.
And I was like, I would kind of say things like, oh yeah, soon, right now I'm just focused on work and everything. But then I would sort of pretend that I was into girls, even
Mm,
when I moved to the US, because I have relatives in California.
you know what I mean?
So in front of them, I would pretend that I was pursuing a girl, and it wasn't. It's not. I was living a lie. Basically, it wasn't very authentic, and it was so hard
You know what I mean?
emotionally to live a life like that. So yeah, I think that was the and just talking to my at that time, right? Just talking to my parents, talking to my family, that I'm not able to share anything. Like when I finally met my husband now, like in the beginning, I wish I can talk about, how in straight relationships, it's so easy for people to talk about how they met, or like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, Chris and I are just, going on vacation and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I didn't have that. It's hard to, really share that about yourself. And it was, it affected our relationship. So definitely was,
Yeah.
those were the things in which I thought it was difficult, was a struggle to hide and live a secret life.
Yeah. And as you're kind of reconciling and working through it, was there ever a moment where you started thinking, I need to document this? It seems like you went from experiencing all this, doing all this work, and just trying to continue on moving from different state to state. And I'm just curious what got yourself into writing about it? Because some people, it would be something really scary, right? And I think it's fascinating. You did it under anonymity. I remember when I was writing Zanga back in the day.
Mhm.
Oh, my name was everywhere. Yeah. My name was everywhere. I was publishing like these like poems. If I was happy, it was a happy poem. If it was sad, it was a sad poem. Everyone would know about it. And that was before, for listeners, way before social media.
Uh-huh.
And we would have these blogs, right? And people would
Right.
follow the blogs to kind of see what's up with everyone. And you kind of had to
Yeah.
filter and parse through everyone. But I'm just curious, what was the impetus behind it? Was it just needing to feel heard? I am just so curious. What was the impetus behind the anonymity and also the writing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the writing, so when I started the blog around 2005,
Yeah.
there was a need to express. I guess because I didn't have anybody that I can talk to about my experiences. For instance, going to places like Provincetown or Fire Island, the fun side of the experience, and also the serious side of
Mm,
relationships and like drama and heartaches and everything. I think part of it was just the need to express. And so I found blogging to be the platform to,
mm,
share kind of my experiences. So when I was doing that in 2005, anonymous blog,
yeah.
I kept it for about 3 or 4 years, I think.
Yeah.
And then when I moved to North Carolina, when I went back to business school, once again, I had to set it aside because I feel like it wasn't part of my corporate identity to have a blog about being gay and being a queer immigrant talking about this. So I had to set it aside for a bit. It was in 2018, yeah, when my mom passed away. For some reason,
Mm,
I felt the need to maybe share the story, or I felt the need to, I don't know, like share it and document it.
yeah.
It wasn't something that I planned in the beginning that, you know what, hey, I'm going to document everything that happened. I just got so lucky because I think I used to have like not a diary, but I used to keep notes. I like journals and everything.
Mm, yeah.
So I
Yeah.
was able to go back to things that I've done, like in 2003. There were so many things.
Yeah.
And even the emails, like I was able to see a lot of emails. I keep a lot of cards and letters that I got from family. So when I did the process, I started the process in 2018.
Yeah.
It was like an investigative, like a journalistic
Yeah.
journey that all of a sudden I have all this evidence, different pieces of information that I just used to piece them together. But the impetus for me to write the memoir was really sort of reconcile with my mom fully and really have the need to be able to share it. It was my way of taking it out of me, so
yeah.
to speak, like all the burdens inside of me that even though our relationship got better, I felt like there was a need for me to release it. And writing was my way of doing it.
Do you feel like you weren't able to reconcile it with her or she was around?
I think not fully. Even though I felt that, because she visited me in 2015 and she met my then husband.
Yeah.
But I think from that point on, we would have conversations, but I feel like the conversations were never to the full extent of what I would have liked it to be.
Right.
There's still a lot of things that were left unsaid in my mind.
Yeah.
Like for instance, I could be talking to you, I could be saying, oh yeah, we're good. Chris and I are going to a trip this weekend. And then it would just stop there. Maybe there's like 2 or 3 more things. So it never got to a point where it was full expression. And I feel like maybe that's why I needed to reconcile it through the book so that I can say everything that I had to. So I wish I was able to, but I think I had to go with what I have and
Yeah.
just keep doing it, keep writing and expressing. So it also helped me, after that, as I relate to other people, like with other members of the family, I was able to really tell myself, you know what,
Yeah.
this is such a good lesson to make sure that you express and you communicate, and
Yeah.
so there no regrets.
Yeah. And how has your time in America been? Because you're going from also California to New Jersey to North Carolina. I feel like in both racial tolerance and queer tolerance, you're moving towards these areas that, historically speaking, you have had legislation be as progressive. And so I'm just curious, what's the story behind that?
Yeah.
Yeah. And how has that experience been, especially as somebody who is getting to traverse America, figuring out, charting your own path?
Right.
Yeah.
It's been an interesting journey for me. So I'm in North Carolina now. I think I would say, the first thing I would say is, there's also a lot of stereotypes towards the South, right? People from the South. But I have to say that, many of them are not true, right? I'm also lucky, I guess, that I live in North Carolina, one of the more progressive states in the South, right? And so I've been really lucky that I've met people who are accepting. My husband is from here. So I guess what I'm trying to say is, even though there are stereotypes, I think it's good not to generalize and
Yeah.
maybe have that, experience for yourself. But at the same time, in this environment, we cannot deny that there are people who are racist everywhere, right? Not just here, because I was just traveling a few months ago, and even like the political landscape, right?
I
I think for me, moving to the South, in the beginning, I had my own, I guess, I was a little bit hesitant to, or maybe I had some thoughts about, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
would people accept me in the South? I also experienced when I was in the New Jersey in the Northeast,
Yeah.
I was just like out there, like
Mhm.
as a young queer Filipino, immigrant. I think truthfully, when I first moved here, I felt like, especially my first year of business schools, I kind of went back inside the closet again for a year.
Interesting. Yeah.
I think it was more a me thing, just my own perception of things and how people are.
Yeah.
But thankfully, after a while, I became more comfortable. So I came out to my
Mm,
friends. When I first got a job, it's the same. When I got a job after school, it was the same thing. I was like
yeah.
not open about myself. It's like going back in. It's like being in the closet again, like 2.0. So I feel like I've had to come out like twice.
Yeah.
So after a while, I think I would became more comfortable. Like so,
Mm,
it was just another adjustment for me to reassess everything again. Like the environment and all that. And part of it is because of kind of the notion and the perception. But I think they're also trying to make sure that the we can correct the stereotypes
yeah.
about being here. I can only speak about my own experience, in North Carolina, because I don't know how it is in other places. And I know we
And
hear news about, things, right? Like the struggles that some of our people experience, and they're valid, they're real. So I think we just need to be aware that that can exist, and we need to
mm,
just continue fighting and really finding a way to live your life authentically.
it's interesting. Yeah, I was reading about, or a friend was telling me about this going back in the closet thing. Actually, they see it happening with folks later in age, older folks who go into retirement homes, reportedly have higher rates of going back into the closet. And sometimes we do it as a part of just having to survive, exist in this country, right? And I think the more that I've spent time here in America and kind of seeing what's coming up, and even in politics, just seeing everything that's unraveling. Sometimes the progressiveness is very performative, right?
Mhm.
And what you're seeing with also even this entire year, the landscape of DEI and all these different charters and initiatives have been completely decimated.
Yeah.
Funding towards artwork, writing, all of these things to support underrepresented voices, that creative industry gone down tremendously.
Yeah.
And so I guess going back to kind of your work, right? And your work in writing about your identity and your other projects where identity is important, an aspect of it. Why is it important for you to write about that
Yeah.
or to create about it? Or even some of the plays and some of the stuff that you have been doing outside of writing?
I think it goes back to my example earlier that when I moved to the South, that I had to go back in the closet, right? That shouldn't be the case,
Right.
right? I think that was the case because of fear of being rejected, fear of being bullied and all that, right? Experiencing, all the negativity.
Yeah.
I think it's important for us to continue creating, stories, raising awareness, because we want to debunk that notion of fear. We want people to be accepting of who they are,
Yeah.
so that wherever they go in this country, that they feel confident and they have the courage to really be who they are. I
Yeah.
think that's the reason why we have to keep raising awareness, keep telling our stories, keep
Definitely.
creating platforms such as like your podcast
Yeah.
and the stories that I and other writers are telling.
Yeah. And I just realized I said plays, TV production, films. Yeah. I think it's so important. And sometimes we try whitewashing ourselves, right? Sometimes we wash these identities as part of this narrative and we say to ourselves, oh, it's not so important. And I can remember a time in my life when I really tried to fit in with communities outside of being in my own skin, right? Queer communities, Asian communities. And as a part of assimilating, trying to see how I can speak less accented, be more articulate with my wording, or even the way I was dressing
Mhm.
to be more American, however. way I can, right? And I think more and more, I realized that this reason of this need to assimilate or to whitewash ourselves is going back to power dynamics, right?
Mhm.
Is taking away power, taking away importance and value of what we bring to the table. And also even for myself, part two was this difficulty reconciling with my struggles. And I don't know if you've had this issue before where
Yeah.
even when I was on social media for the longest time, I felt this need to self-identify so much with hardship that I was like, no, I am. So doing the 180, right? Going, oh no, this isn't a big part of me. Like I don't, I'm like everyone else.
Yeah.
And then doing a 180 going, no, like this is me, that this is like this is so important. And now I find myself in a much more middle ground, which took me many years of reconciling it.
Yeah.
Curious how, if that resonates with you.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I mentioned in the beginning earlier about the byproduct of colonialization, and
Yeah. Yeah.
I can speak about my own experience and also a little bit about
Yeah.
the context around my experience. Being Filipino, being under Spain for 333 years, and even as we speak nowadays in the Philippines,
Mhm.
there's always this beauty standards, basically that attributes, if you have a whiter skin, you're more beautiful. I think those are
Yeah.
byproducts of colonization. And, in a way, it affects kind of how you want to define who you are, right? And, what you aspire to become. And, you know,
Definitely.
I'm guilty of that, right? That, I felt the need to assimilate. And so I think from my, like personal experience, I
Yeah.
know that I have to actively decolonize.
Yeah.
When people talk about that, right? I think for me, it's really kind of removing those biases and trying to find your core, who you are,
Yeah.
because it exists. It's a real thing. There's so many things that you've said that also resonated with me. See myself, or I saw myself in that, having those struggles before of trying to fit in. When I first moved here to the US,
Mhm.
I felt so many different struggles too, among them, really fitting in. I was an immigrant from the Philippines in early 20s. And,
Yeah.
there's struggles that we experience about being perceived as like perpetual foreigners, like
Mhm.
I've been, I got compliments from people telling me that I speak good English without them knowing what the implication of what they're saying, right? And
Yeah.
so there's things like that that exist, microaggressions,
Definitely.
racism. I think the more we can really debunk those,
Yeah.
it also comes down to how we assert ourselves and how we constantly, like the individual journey of decolonizing oneself.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. I start with that, and then I try to speak out as much as I can, and
Yeah.
talk about that. Have conversations like these, like what we're having. Because I think it's important. Some people might be in a certain place right now that they're not fully there yet.
Yeah.
Some people will never be, right? So I think it's an individual journey. But I think the more we get there, I feel like that's collectively better for us because we embrace who we are, we're authentic,
Mhm.
we help contribute to increasing visibility and representation and, being who we are. So those are my takeaways, Stephen, on that topic.
Yeah. Yeah. It's quite an ever evolving journey for so many of us, I think with also the influx of social media,
Mhm.
which is really different. I feel like my generation was very much the last generation that was able to be disconnected, and now you have Gen Alpha who
Yeah.
are actually not being able to develop a sense of self because some parents are just plugging them directly into the internet even before the age of 6. And the detriment of it. I'm seeing a lot of reports and not actual reports where they have the data because we're literally, quite literally figuring it out as we're moving along, but this ever connected globalized society. And I'm just curious, going back to kind of your journey, movement toward America, have you gone back? Have you gone back to visit?
Yeah, I have. I actually was just there earlier this year in June.
Mm,
So I went there for my dad's 75th birthday. So
yeah,
I try to visit as often as I can. I think the past 5 or so years, I'm happy that I've been able to go more regularly.
yeah,
So yeah, I think because nowadays, I mean, you talked about like the different generations now, right? Like I feel old sometimes, because like I don't understand
yeah,
how like the Gen Zs or like the Gen Alpha, like some of the terminologies, the language and everything.
yeah,
I think on the flip sides, for it's hard to keep it's hard to keep up.
yeah. Even for me, yeah, yeah,
But I think the flip side, on the more serious note,
yeah.
because I feel like I'm older, I feel like the need to connect even more, to
Mm,
family, especially being an immigrant. I think the downside of being an immigrant is, you have your family thousands of miles away, right?
yeah,
You only see them very often and it's an expensive trip, So I think every opportunity that I can to reconnect, that's focus
yeah,
of my life now. And also just to enjoy the life that I have too with my husband now, with family. I think I'm more in that mindset. I keep up with social media because in my line of work, I think it's important to
yeah,
be able to listen and, connect to the different audiences, from different age groups. And it's fun to do it every now and then, right? We all want to dance like on a TikTok trend sometimes. But I don't know how you feel about that. But I guess on the serious side, yeah, it's the connection to family. That's
yeah,
that's how I think about it.
yeah. How has your sister reacted, especially the older one?
We're pretty cool now. Honestly, like,
Yeah.
sometimes I guess
Has she ever talked about it? Has she ever mentioned anything about it?
we had some, a long time ago, like serious conversations,
Yeah.
just to reconcile things. But nowadays, like there was actually, when I was blogging before,
Yeah.
she actually accidentally
Found it.
found my website and you could expect her
Mm,
reaction was like, oh my God, like you didn't even think about us and so on and so forth. I
yeah.
think it went from that to now when I do crazy, sometimes I put like a dress or something like that. Like sometimes
Oh, yeah. Do it.
yeah, I make videos like that. And now she would just comment about like
Yeah.
slay or, like things like that, like the equivalent of that.
Interesting. Okay. Maybe there's a little bit of queerness in her.
Yeah, what? If that's
Yeah.
the case, I'm open and I'm up for it. But I'm just thankful that that's the reaction that I get from her now. It's
Yeah.
I would dance to like Addison Ray, Diet Pepsi, and I would be in my element and like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
doing this and that, and she would be like, like in Filipino, she would be like diva, like I think
Yeah.
this is kind of what I wanted. That's what I want.
Yeah.
I think it's healthier. Of course, with siblings, there's always gonna be drama here and there.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's not about that anymore. Like sometimes we just experience difficult things like whenever we try to go travel, there's always, oh, when are you gonna confirm you're going? And then because of that, well, I have to cancel. Like,
Mhm.
like different causes of drama nowadays. But at least on the identity part, I feel more comfortable to share who I am
Yeah.
and I'm not hiding myself to them. So I feel, feel good about it. I feel like it's,
Yeah.
the saying that we hear, it gets better.
Yeah.
I believe that. I feel like, that's the case. It's like for me, I feel like it got better with regard to my family.
Yeah.
And my wish is just for everybody else who's not there yet or feeling hurt at this point by their current circumstances, that eventually they get better too.
Yeah.
Whether that means internally for them feeling better and being more accepting of who they are, or also externally with their family or friends and loved ones accepting them as well.
Yeah.
But that was a good question. Yeah.
Yeah. What would you say to your younger self at the impasse and navigating it? I feel like there's also so many across Asia, even the Philippines. And when it comes to queer identities and the criminalization of it, it's still happening persistently today. And I think there's a lot of also handful of listeners who listen to this podcast, but a lot of folks who are not in the best situation and they try to figure out what to do next. What would you say to yourself? Yeah.
I would tell myself to first acknowledge that it's okay to feel that way, right? It's a normal emotion to feel that way. I also will tell myself that, do not be afraid to really live your life, to be who you are.
Yeah.
It might feel that way. There's a lot of fear, there's rejection, and there are all valid feelings.
Mm,
I think the most important thing for me is that you find acceptance from yourself. I think that's the most important. I think that would be, for me, everything else will follow once that happens.
And how do you know when you've accepted yourself? I feel like that could be, queerness is one, but I see this with so many other facets, right? Where you even see so many of the people, these cis white tech workers, I don't feel like they've truly even accepted themselves. And I think even for people who come from positions of power, I think that's I think it's a very poignant kind of saying, but I'm just curious as a litmus test or as a part of just understanding where we are in that journey.
Yeah.
How do we know whether or not we've accepted ourselves?
I think that to me, I always think of it as an ongoing journey, right? Because
Yeah.
there might be situations in which I feel like I wouldn't be myself for different reasons. I could be attending a networking event or a party or something like that. And sometimes there's a pressure to act a certain way or,
Mhm.
fit in. I think that struggle sometimes that doesn't go away, even though you're older or, whatever.
Yeah.
I think understanding that it's an ongoing journey, helps too, because we can never be like, for me personally, I'm not going to say like, I'm done, I'm like completely, absolute. I think one thing to think about it is just for me, like maybe comparing myself to a point in the past. Like, for example, the way I talked to my family before when I wasn't myself, I was hiding a lot of the details about my sexual orientation, about my relationships. I think having a comparison to a point in time in which it was different, I think that's a good way to think about it. So that means that there's been some growth. And then hopefully that helps you feel better, right? So that's my example. Just thinking about when I first moved here, I can't even talk to them about anything. And then now when I talk to my sister and I have a picture or a video of me like dancing to Sabrina Carpenter and her reaction was like diva. I think that, that to me is a way to have some sort of measure on how far you've come, I think, in terms of your journey.
Yeah.
But never thinking that it's over. There's always ways to keep fighting because to your point, there's still a lot of people that would constantly discriminate you because of your racial identity, because of your sexual orientation. And we have to just continue, asserting ourselves and and fighting and living our authentic lives. So unfortunately, that's the case. That we have to just keep
Mm,
fighting, so to speak.
yeah.
But I guess looking back, to a certain point in time, sometimes helps for me.
Yeah. What are you up to now? So you've written the book, you've done a lot of these creative projects. What are you working on right now?
Thanks for that question. Definitely for me, it's continuing the journey as a queer Filipino-American artist. And, my creative work, as you've mentioned in the bio,
Uh-huh.
really spans multiple mediums, but mostly in the areas of writing and filmmaking. So I have a lot of projects out there. On the filmmaker side, I have a short film that's currently in post production that hopefully we can finish soon and submit to film festivals. And then I'm also working on a feature film project, this that's currently in development.
Yeah.
And then there's a bunch of other things that I'm, just writing at the moment. And then in terms of my book, so you mentioned Kiss My Mic, my memoir.
Uh-huh.
I also just published a children's book.
Uh,
It's called Chasing New York, YOLK. So this is part of the Chickaville series. It's a children's book. It's based on chicken characters. It's actually inspired by my own experience raising backyard chickens. So, Steven, that's the kind of life I live now in North Carolina. Like, we
Yeah.
have backyard chickens and we have two basset hounds, two dogs.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to think about, like,
Yeah.
my younger years and and the stuff that I do now. So that's those are the things I'm doing now on the creative side.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm open to really exploring. I think there's just so much hunger in me to discover different things and do different things on the creative side. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So
What are you excited for to come? What is his vision for yourself? What do you hope to achieve? Yeah.
yeah, that's the ultimate question, right? I think definitely to me, I would say there is joy in being able to create something, whether it's a book or a short film.
Definitely.
But of course, there's also the business side of things, right? We want to make it sustainable.
Definitely.
So hopefully there's more access to resources, not just for me, but for other queer AAPI artists out there. I think that's,
Yeah.
in the creative world, I think I just want more of our stories to be represented. I want to connect more with others in the same industry also so that we can continue having this
Mm,
community. And I hope that there will be better resources for us so that we can continue doing the work that we're doing, including your podcast, Stephen, right? We need more
yeah.
platforms such as your podcast.
And we need more books like yours. Yes.
No, I love it. I love it. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
what I'm excited about, what I'm looking for is to see us really continuing the journey, hopefully getting to a level where it becomes sustainable for us,
Mm,
whether it means more support, whether it means more financial security.
yeah.
That's my hope so that we can continue this journey.
Yeah. Yeah. We're getting towards the end of the episode, and I have a few quick questions for you. What is something that is bringing you some joy lately?
Bringing me joy. Aside from my chickens, by the way, they're really cute. They have their personalities.
I had chickens growing up, actually, and they
Did you?
such a personality. Yeah, yeah.
All right, I'll tell you though. We have names for them.
Mhm.
So the first batch, I have two Orpingtons. They're like light brown color. They're very good egg layers. Their names were Mary Kate and Ashley. So the
It's funny.
chickens give me joy.
Yeah.
I think being able to connect to family, loved ones, friends, those are the things that give me joy.
Mm,
Continuing the creative journey, being able to create something, share it with the world, talk to people,
yeah.
such as yourself. yeah, those are all things that, are positive and, are giving me
Yeah.
excitement and happiness. So
Yeah.
yeah,
What is one lesson that you want our listeners to take away with?
I think I mentioned this briefly, but it's do not be afraid. Do
Yeah.
not be afraid to, and then continue that sentence, right?
Yeah.
Do not be afraid to try something new. Do not be afraid to
Take risks.
take risk. You know the limits though. I'm not advocating, like
Yeah.
for you to do bad things or things like that, right? But sometimes when we're fearful of doing something because of whatever reason,
Mhm.
that really kind of blocks us from our growth or pulls us back.
Yeah.
I think that's what I wanted to share is, do not be afraid. I think there's so many things in my life that I feel like I did just that, even though it was scary, like moving to the US.
Yeah.
That was a scary thing to leave everything behind. I
Yeah.
mean, I know you have listeners who are immigrants or people that have moved from one place to another, and it's nerve wracking and it's scary. Maybe others are considering doing that and they are fearful, but I think I think to let go of that fear, you'll just never know what you're gonna get, right? You'll never know if you don't try. So I think that was probably my one piece of advice that I can, share.
Yeah. And how can people find you and your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm active on social media, Instagram at Kiss My Mike. That's Kiss My and then Mike, my name, underscore official. My website is kmmventures.com. That's for my film work. And then I think other than that, what else? I think I also have a Kiss My Mike website. So yeah, check it out. Looking forward to more, to connecting and meeting more people, and hopefully maybe there'll be collaboration along the way. I'm always open to collaborating, Stephen. So
Yes.
yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, I appreciate it.
Yeah, of course. And if you enjoyed this episode, also please leave us a rating and review on your podcast platforms. That's how friends discover our episodes and take a listen to stories like this with Mike that you've been listening to today. If you want to get additional show notes and take a look at some additional thoughts from other guests and other speakers, follow us on social media at Yellow Glitter PD, or you can visit us online at yellowglitterpodcast.com. I just want to be so grateful and appreciative and just relish in your wisdom, Mike. So thank you so much. And I really appreciate you having been on the show today with us.
It's my pleasure, Stephen. And like what I've said, thanks for the work that you do. It's incredibly important to really continue having these conversations. And so thanks for creating this platform. And, I wish the best. Anything I can do to help, I'm here as well. So thank you. It's a privilege to be able to talk to you today. So thank you.
Thank you so much. And for those listening, thank you for tuning in and hope you have a beautiful rest of your day. And until next time, we'll talk to you later. Bye.